to talk a little bit about that. Like, it's springtime. Is there anything that we should know, going into this season, anything to be aware of? Because this call is to really get people prepared for the week and just start your week off, but it's really open, especially having you today. So I just
Okay.
want you to share whatever you feel is
So
good
much
for the group.
spaciousness, but so little time.
I know. So, and people trickle in. So good morning, everybody. I'm so excited to have you all here. So just as we wait for other people to trickle in, I'm so happy to welcome my beautiful friend, I consider you a teacher, Catherine. I consider you my teacher. I consider you a mentor for me. So Catherine Linard is a beautiful channeler. I consider her a spiritual teacher. I think we met way back in 2011. It's been a while. I think it's
At
been
least.
at least that long. And so she has helped me through so many things, dark times, wonderful times. She's given me perspectives on life that I have never heard from anybody else. And I just want to say how blessed I am to know you, Catherine. And
Ooh.
so, and I'm so happy to have you on the call today. And for anybody who is new or hasn't been here before, this is just a call to get you ready for the week, to start your week off with good vibes, to give you some intentional energy going forward. So every month, at the very end of the month, I have a guest come on. And so today our guest is Catherine. And I know other people will trickle in. So Catherine, the floor is yours, whatever you want to talk about. Catherine and I were saying maybe we'll talk about spring a little bit since we're in a new season, but it's really open. So Catherine, take it away.
Okay. Thank you so much. Gosh, what a lot of kind and generous words there. It's been an honor to work with you. And thank you for inviting me, and thank you for having me. And I have no idea what we're going to talk about. So we'll start the way that I always like to start, which is let's just all take a breath in, close your eyes, and let yourself be comfortable. There's no particular way to sit in order to connect with your inner wisdom or inner divinity. And that's always what we're after, at least in the work that I do, is to go inward and listen to the inside I am, because there's always a lot of influence of the external God consciousness and divinity. And I don't argue with that, but for your own experience in this incarnation, this iteration of you in this lifetime, the best knowing comes from within. So we start by just breathing into your spine. It's just a noticing. You're not trying to look for anything, become anything, find anything. Just let your awareness travel down your spine. Just noticing that you have a spine. You don't even have to sit upright. Following it into your seat, and let yourself just settle more comfortably into your upper body. Let yourself rest in your body. Let your shoulders drop. Let your whole being relax. There's nothing to do. There's nowhere to get to. There's no one to become. You are already all that you are meant to be, finding different ways to express yourself. That's all we're doing here, is finding different ways to express ourselves. Allow your awareness to travel down your legs, into your feet. Feel your feet either on the floor or wherever they are. And imagine a flow of energy running all the way through the vessel of your physical body, from the crown all the way down through the feet, flushing out any energies or ideas that are no longer welcome for you, that are no longer serving you, that are no longer in your best interest. And in my work, we always talk about the fact that energy does not have a will of its own. It's not trying to stay put. It does so only because we ignore it, repress it, deny it, or tell a lot of stories about why it's there. Just imagine if you could open the bottoms of your feet and let it all drain out. This is not mine. This is not my energy. Even if you have very good stories about why it's your energy, even if this energy has been with you your whole lifetime, as far as you can remember, that doesn't make it your energy. We are all energetic beings. We are all energetically sensitive, and we all pick up energy. And then we forget it or ignore it because that's what we're taught to do. So a lot of the work of finding your inner light, your inner wisdom, is just getting rid of everything that isn't that. Everything and anything that isn't that. So being that it is spring, many of you may find yourselves waking up in a different way, shedding a lot of old energies. We are definitely in sort of a new era of awareness as of about the second week of January. So you can just relax. You don't have to hold on to anything now. You can bring your awareness into this group. If there are any questions or anything you're particularly interested in hearing about or knowing about, please put it forth, either unmute yourself and ask or type it in the chat. So we'll talk first about what we just did and the importance of what we call grounding, rooting, centering, or becoming present to your inner knowing, your inner wisdom. And we're not just talking about mindfulness and meditation here, which are wonderful tools, but what we're really talking about is just becoming present to what is, not looking for a particular state, not trying to be ecstatic or joyful or blissful, but just becoming present to what is. And if when you become present, it gets uncomfortable, can you breathe through that discomfort? Because that is the quickest and easiest way to keep your energy body clear, or at least clearer in this world that we live in, where there are a lot of energies bouncing around all the time. And it's a good practice to incorporate daily. First thing in the morning, ideally, before the mind gets busy and active and distracted by all of the to-dos. Letting yourself just take 2 to 5 minutes. Again, not the same as meditation. So we don't recommend spending 30 minutes, an hour for this particular practice. It's 2 to 5 minutes to just check in. Where am I today? How am I today? Is there anything that's very important to me today that I would like to get done? Is there anything I could let go of today that I feel like I should do, but I'm not feeling the yes-ness of it? So when we talk about the relationship to the mind and the soul, between the ego and the soul, we want to be careful not to separate those too much. The ego is not the enemy. It is simply the filter through which we perceive the physical reality in which we live. And without the ego, you don't exist here. You are just free-floating energy. So rather than demonizing the ego, rather than pathologizing the ego, rather than criticizing the ego, which it's had a lot of it in this lifetime, what we want to do is make friends with it. What we want to do is practice radical self-compassion and understanding. The ego, by its nature, is not self-sabotaging. It is not trying to make things more difficult. It is merely trying to survive and cope in a world that tries to tell you who to be, how to be, who not to be, and how not to be. So your soul creates this expression of itself that is you. It designs the ego to be able to express itself in this particular way that is you. And then you come into this world and pretty quickly are told, don't do that, can't do that, can't want that, don't like that, no, 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 no. And so we have this inherent knowing of ourselves. We know from the beginning what we like and what we don't like, what we want and what we don't want. And then all these voices are telling us things that oppose that. And we end up at some point not really knowing what we like or what we want anymore, not being sure. So when we talk about the practice of awakening or enlightening, which is not, it shouldn't be an end goal. Don't let that be your end goal. Let that be an ongoing process, because the reality that we live in is always shifting and changing. And so how you want to express yourself may have to shift and change throughout your lifetime, maybe several times. So you can awaken every day. You can become enlightened in a moment and forget it the next, and then become enlightened in the next moment. Being enlightened, being awake, being aware is only remembering the I am, that I am already divinity. There is nothing to become. The soul does not come here to evolve. The soul is already all that is. The soul is already everything that is divine consciousness. The soul is not an aspect of divinity. It is divinity. It is divine consciousness. So you are never having to become divine. So becoming awake or enlightened is not reaching divinity. It's really getting everything else out of the way. Everything else out of the way. And how do you know what everything else is? Well, it's basically the stuff that doesn't feel very good. So when we talk about your relationship between the ego's awareness of the soul and the soul's intention, there are two states of being. There is in alignment or resonant, in alignment with the soul's intention, or resonant with the soul's intention, or not in alignment. You can't really be out of alignment. The ego is not a creative force. The ego cannot oppose the soul. So I like to think of the ego as like a dog on a fairly short leash, where the soul will let it wander so far. But if the ego starts to wander into territory that is not compatible with the soul's intention, it will get pulled back. That's where you run into brick walls. And when we talk about brick walls, we're not talking about having an idea for something and getting a no. A no isn't a brick wall. The brick wall is when it doesn't feel good anymore. When you feel yourself pushing, when you feel yourself in the, I have to do this, I should do this, I really need to do this, rather than just, I want to do this. I like this enough to keep going, even if there are a lot of no's coming my way. Because the goal isn't to please anybody else. The goal is to live as an expression of what makes you happy, what makes you joyful. If you want to be happy, if you want to be joyful, you have to live in a way that is in accord with that to the best of your ability. And the immediate response from many people to a statement like that is, but I need money for that. And of course, you do need money to survive in this world. But money itself is rarely the issue with people. Most people think they have fears around money, limitations around money. And while there is an overstated energy of lack in this reality, money is rarely the issue. We look at money as a reflection of energy flow. So if you are putting your energy towards things that don't feel good, or let's say too many things that don't feel good, because sometimes you do things that don't feel as good, like maybe your taxes in the next month. Maybe you like doing taxes, in which case maybe that is your calling. But when you're putting too much of your energy towards too many things that don't feel good, don't have that, yes, I want to do this, and are rather more in the, I should do this, I have to do this, someone else wants me or needs me to do this, then you choke off the flow of energy, and then money tends to become more and more limited. So rather than using money as a barometer of what you're capable of, or measure of what you're capable of, start to look at money as a barometer of how true you are being to your own enjoyment of this experience. How can you start adding into your life more things that are joyful? You don't have to do this all at once. That's not necessary. I had a client years ago who was a plant-based dietitian, and I had worked with a lot of vegans at that time, and they were very adamant about their choice to not eat meat and how wrong that was. And the response from divine self is always hate begets hate. If you don't want to eat meat, don't eat it. So this plant-based dietitian I worked with talked about how she worked with her clients, and she used to say, I don't tell them not to eat meat. I encourage them to start adding in more vegetables, a little more salad, a little more fruit, a little bit more of the healthy stuff. Not that meat isn't necessarily healthy. So it's this idea of just adding in more of what you like and taking away anything that you can that is really causing you to feel unhappy, uncomfortable, distressed, pressured. Take a moment and let that sink in for a moment. Let yourself consider if there is anything in your life today that you could start to extract yourself from, that you're not doing because it lights you up, but because you think you should. Maybe because it strokes your ego. Probably because somebody else told you you should or has you convinced that it would be a good thing for you to do. Could you let some of that go? Could you let, in the next week or two, one thing go that you're forcing yourself to do instead of doing, and we're not talking about the needs, cooking your dinner, washing your clothes. We're talking about things that you don't have to do. In this work, not to be crass, but we do talk about the fact that what you need, the essential needs in life, are to eat, sleep, and poop. Those you have to do. And pretty much everything else becomes optional. Now, some of those things you might quote, have to do in order to live well in the world, like pay your taxes and don't rob a bank. But outside of those sorts of things, there is tremendous leeway in what is available to you to say no to because you're not enjoying it. So our invitation to you as you continue to blossom into spring is, what can I let go of that I'm doing because I feel like I should or have to, that I don't actually have to and don't really want to? And conversely, what could I add in? What is something, if there is something that you really want to try, that you're denying yourself because of time or money or something else? You don't have to commit hours a day to learning to play piano or learning a new language or anything else or writing, if that's what's inspiring you. 5 minutes, and then positive self-regard. Because the brain is a positive feedback loop. It thrives on positive self-regard, positive feedback, not punishment, not criticism. That makes the brain, the mind, more crippled, less able, less inspired. So anytime you let yourself do something that you're proud of, that you feel good about, whether that's letting something go that you're not enjoying, or letting yourself take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to do something that you've been wanting to do but think you don't have enough time for, take a moment and applaud yourself. You spend so many hours of the day unwittingly criticizing yourself. I should do better. I should do more. I should have done it that way. I screwed up. Blah, blah, blah. A waste of time and energy, and just further damaging your sense of self and your ability to connect to your I am, to know what you want. So practice kindness. Practice gentleness. You can change your thoughts, as everyone would say in any type of work like this. Don't let your thoughts think you. The ego is not a creative force, but you can hold on to or attract energies that are unpleasant by maintaining thoughts that attract those energies. If you're sad and you keep explaining why you're sad, guess what? You're going to keep being sad. If you're afraid, you want to try something new or different and you're afraid, and you keep explaining why you're afraid, then guess what? You will keep being afraid. You cannot stop a thought and leave your mind blank, but you can change it, replace it with a different thought, one that serves you better. So we would offer you to make it a practice to watch what you're thinking and make sure that you're thinking kindly and gently toward yourself. The reason that we say that the ego is not self-sabotaging, besides the fact that the ego is not self-sabotaging, is in the hopes that you can approach it with understanding. Everything that the ego does, everything the ego is driven to do, is something it learned to do at some point in your life to survive a situation that felt dangerous or uncomfortable. It is trying to keep you alive. That is your brain's job. That is the job of your being. So instead of being mad at yourself for doing something that maybe turned out not the way you wanted it to or hoped it would, try being understanding and supportive. I get why you did that. It must have felt like the right thing at the time. How could we try something different now? What might we try instead next time? Let yourselves off the hook a little bit, please. Know that we, as I am, are always within you, always here to support you, always here to listen, and we pretty much always say yes. Pretty much, because we do not say yes to things that are not in alignment for you. We do not say yes, and truthfully, you can't really want something that's truly out of alignment. You couldn't want it if you tried. And you're not here to learn lessons. And we're not here to teach you the hard way. That is not how this works. We are here to support you. But if you keep doing the same thing that isn't working for you, there isn't a whole lot that we can do, especially if you're not asking for intervention. Don't ask outward. Don't ask to some arbitrary external divinity that you don't know. Look inward to your own soul, to your own inner wisdom, and ask for the guidance that you need. And then please take that 2 to 5 minutes we suggested at the beginning to listen and see if you get an answer. If you listen daily, it may not come right away. If you ask for assistance, it may not show up immediately. But if you continue to connect and make time for stillness to listen, we can promise you that an answer will come. And more often than not in the way that you expect or might think. So keep your eyes and ears open and looking inward. We'll pause there and see if anybody has any questions or if we would like to wind down.
Catherine, could you just speak just a touch more on really trusting our inner wisdom? Because I know sometimes it can be like, do I really know that? Can I really trust this answer? And how it feels in the body for the last few minutes.
Sure. So when we talk about being in resonance or in alignment, there's a calmness to that. There is we call it the yesness, but it is a physiological feeling of a relaxation, maybe a little bit of relief, maybe a little bit of excitement, maybe even a little bit of emptiness. if you're considering, and this is again why that 2 to 5 minutes of sitting, just to become aware of the state of your body, not to get it into a particular state, but to become aware of its state in the moment. So when there's a shift in that state, you can be aware of it. Because if you're bumping up against something that is not in alignment, that isn't probably going to turn out the way that you want, or just doesn't need to be done because it's going to take care of itself, you'll feel resistance. You'll feel anxiety, fear, hesitation, doubt. These are all indicators that you may be pushing yourself in a direction that doesn't feel good. And the standard line is feel the fear and do it anyway. And our attitude is maybe don't do that so much. If you have that, I really want to, I'm afraid, but I really want to give this a go, then by all means feel the fear and do it anyway. But if your feeling is, I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to, don't make me do this, maybe don't push through that. That is an indication that you're pushing yourself out of ego conditioning, what you've learned or been taught or observed in the world around you, what other people have convinced you of, rather than this is what feels right for me. So again, kindness and gentleness with yourself and really feeling into that. And one last thought on that. Again, the ego is not a creative force in and of itself. It's not separate from the soul's intention. So if you're on the fence about it, if you're like, I don't know, maybe, maybe not, dealer's choice. If you feel enough like, I don't know, but I'm going to try it, try it. Divine universe always course corrects. Again, the soul is not going to be controlled by the ego ever under any circumstance. So there's nothing that you can do that is going to, pardon the language, screw you over so terribly that it can't be resurrected, that it can't be reversed. We always say the only two energies that you cannot undo are death and babies. Those can't be undone. Even if you give a baby away for adoption, there's still an energy there. So death and babies can't be undone. Everything else can be course corrected. So you can stumble, you can fall, you can skin your knee, you can even break your leg. It will heal. You just have to keep coming back to I am. What feels good now? Try to not look backwards so much at what happened, especially if you're looking through the lens of, oh, how did I screw this up? Look forward. Where am I right now? And what do I want to do next? How can I get from here to where I want to go next? Keep looking in that trajectory because you cannot go back in time. The one thing that you can do for the sake of the ego is look at an event that has occurred and reframe it through a gentler lens so that there's less toxic or negative or detrimental energy attached to it, less negativity. That understanding we're talking about, looking back and saying, oh, I see, I did this because. So where am I now? Where do I want to go from here? And how can I do so with kindness and gentleness and understanding that my ego's just trying to be okay. It wants to feel good, but first it has to survive. That's always the first priority is, how do I survive this? Have more patience and grace and radical self-compassion. No matter what you choose, no matter what you do, you cannot get it that wrong because you cannot oppose the soul's intention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I mean, now that you've all experienced the magic of Catherine, I have shared Catherine's website in the emails that went out. So if you want to book a private with her, you can always visit her site and get in touch with her. Her work is amazing. It will heal you. It will help you. So I'm just so grateful to you, Catherine. Thank you so much for coming today.
May I say one thing to that?
Yes, yes.
It is not my work to heal anybody because you are all divine. It is my work to help you find the way back to that so that you can do the work yourself. I think that's a really important distinction. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, thank you. So yes, her information is in the email. And if anyone has any questions, you can always email me too. So have a beautiful week And I will see you guys next week, hopefully. Bye,
Thank you again so
everybody.
much for having me.
Thanks, Catherine. I love you. Thanks for coming. Bye,
Love you. It's nice to see
everybody.
you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.